My name is Iris Tmain. I turned 18 last night. At my birthday party. My father pulled me aside, leaned in close, and said something quietly, like it wasn't important. When this is over, you're going to sign some papers for your Uncle Wade. He smiled. Just a formality. I smiled back. I nodded. And then I walked into the kitchen. Opened my laptop. And moved every dollar my grandparents left me into a legal structure my family could never touch. By the next morning, everything had changed. The cabin. The savings. The investments. All of it. Locked. Untouchable. My father went pale. My uncle, who had already signed a deal to sell something that was never his, called a lawyer. And my mother? She realized, for the first time in years, that I wasn't the quiet daughter anymore. But to understand why I did that, you have to go back. 6 years earlier. Cedar Lake. I was 12 the first time my grandfather took me there alone. 40 minutes from town. No signal. No noise. Just trees. Water. And silence that didn't feel empty. The cabin sat back from the shoreline, hidden behind tall white pines. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The screen door didn't close properly. And the air inside smelled like wood smoke. Old paper. And something warm I could never explain. Grab the other end, Grandpa said. He was holding a fence rail. I picked it up without asking why. We spent the entire morning replacing posts along the south side of the property. He didn't rush me. He showed me how to check the wood. Press your thumb into it, he said. If it gives, it's done. Everything he taught me had a reason. Not just how to fix things. How to notice them. Inside, Grandma had lunch ready. 2 sandwiches. Iced tea. Always before we asked. Because she already knew. That evening, we sat on the porch, watching the lake turn gold under the sunset. And that's when Grandpa said something I didn't understand at the time. This cabin stays in the family, he told me. Then he looked at me. Not past me. Not through me. At me. But family isn't always blood, Iris. I remember frowning. What do you mean? He smiled slightly. Family is whoever shows up. At 12. I thought he was just being poetic. I didn't realize he was being exact. That summer, I went back every weekend. I learned everything. Which window stuck. Where the heater leaked. How to clean the gutters before winter. Grandma showed me how to organize the bookshelves by color. It makes the room feel warmer, she said. Grandpa showed me the property lines. Old iron stakes in the ground. Everything has boundaries, he told me. You just have to know where they are. I didn't know it then. But he was already planning something. Something that would matter years later. Because back home, things felt different. Not bad. Just empty. Our house in Ridgemont was fine. 3 bedrooms. A yard. A garage my dad used as an office. Everything worked. But nothing felt warm. My younger sister Kelsey had the bigger room. Fresh paint. New furniture. Mine still had the same carpet from the previous owners. At dinner, my dad talked about the cabin like it was a problem. That place is losing value, he said. Taxes alone are a waste. We should sell it. My mom nodded immediately. Reinvest. It's smarter. I said something quietly. Grandpa said it stays in the family. My dad laughed. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Worse. Dismissively. You were 12, Iris, he said. He was just being nice. And that was the end of it. The conversation moved on. To my sister. Her achievements. Her future. No one asked me anything else. That's when I started noticing something. Not suddenly. Slowly. Like a pattern revealing itself. In my family. Value wasn't measured in effort. It was measured in usefulness. And I was useful when I stayed quiet. 2 years later. My grandfather died. I was 14. The funeral was gray. Cold. People spoke softly. But in the corner. My father and Uncle Wade were talking. Not grieving. Planning. I heard one sentence. We should move before probate gets complicated. They weren't talking about loss. They were talking about opportunity. And I realized something. For the first time. To them. The cabin wasn't a memory. It was money. 2 years after that. My grandmother passed. And her last words to me were simple. The cabin is yours. She held my hand tighter than I expected. Don't let them take it. I promised. And for the first time in my life, I understood what my grandfather meant. Family isn't always blood. Family is who shows up. And I was the only one who ever did. Between 16 and 18. The cabin became my quiet rebellion. Every weekend, I went there. Fixed things. Cleaned things. Maintained something no one else cared about. At home. The conversations changed. It wasn't Grandpa's cabin anymore. It became family property. And when my dad said family, he didn't mean me. 3 months before my 18th birthday. Everything shifted. Because that's when I found the envelope. Hidden behind old blankets. My name on it. Inside. A business card. An attorney. Margaret Caldwell. And beneath her name. 4 words that changed everything. Tmain Family Trust. That's when I realized. This wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. I didn't call the number on that card right away. Not because I wasn't curious. Because something inside me said, wait. Not everything needs to be rushed. So I kept it in my wallet. And I watched. Quietly. Because once you start paying attention, people show you exactly who they are. A few weeks later. The call came. Thursday evening. I was sitting on my bed, halfway through a math problem, when my phone lit up. Unknown number. Local area code. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. Iris? The voice was calm. Measured. This is Margaret Caldwell. I sat up immediately. I was your grandparents' attorney. The room felt smaller. I need to speak with you before your birthday. A pause. There are things you need to know, and not much time. Not much time. That phrase stayed with me. We scheduled a meeting. Saturday morning. Downtown. Alone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. Because something in the way she spoke told me this wasn't information meant to be shared. Saturday came. Her office was exactly what I expected. And not what I expected at the same time. Small. Organized. Shelves full of files. A desk that had clearly seen decades of work. Margaret Caldwell looked up as I walked in. Late 50s. Silver hair. Reading glasses resting low on her nose. She didn't smile right away. She studied me. Like she was confirming something. You look like your grandmother, she said finally. I didn't know how to respond. So I just nodded. She gestured for me to sit. Then she opened a folder. And everything changed. Your grandparents hired me 6 years ago, she began. Shortly after that summer you spent at the cabin. My chest tightened. They created an irrevocable trust. She slid a document across the desk. I looked down. My name. Printed clearly. Second line. You are the sole beneficiary. The words didn't fully register at first. So she explained. Slowly. Clearly. The cabin. A savings account. An investment portfolio. All of it. She paused. Is yours. I felt the room tilt slightly. How much? I asked. Approximately $2.1 million. Silence. Not shock. Something else. Recognition. Because suddenly, everything my grandparents had done made sense. They transferred everything into the trust while they were alive, she continued. That means legally. It never became part of their estate. No probate. No claims. No access. Your father and your uncle have no legal right to it. I looked up at her. Do they know? She shook her head. No. Another pause. Your grandfather was very clear about that. She opened another page. He said. And then she read his exact words. My sons will sell that cabin before the funeral flowers wilt. I stared at the desk. Because deep down, I already knew that was true. There's more, Margaret said. She leaned back slightly. Someone has been asking questions. What kind of questions? I asked. At the county recorder's office. About the cabin. When? I asked. Within the last month. That's when something clicked. Everything I had been noticing wasn't random. It was building. That Sunday, I paid closer attention. Uncle Wade came over for dinner. Same as always. But this time, I watched him. After dinner, he and my dad went into the garage. Door slightly open. Just enough. I didn't mean to listen. But some conversations pull you in. I already signed the deal, Wade said. My stomach dropped. $450,000. I stopped breathing. With Ridgeline. My dad's voice came next. But the title? We'll clean it, Wade said quickly. How? Quit claim deed. Silence. Then my dad. Is that legal? It's standard, Wade replied. Between heirs. My chest tightened. Then my name came up. What about Iris? There was no hesitation. She's 17, Wade said. She can't do anything. A pause. By the time she turns 18, the deal will already be done. Done. Give her 50 grand, he added. For college. She'll be grateful. 50,000. Out of 450. I stepped back from the door. My hands were cold. Not from fear. From clarity. They had already decided. Without me. About something that wasn't theirs. That night. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I did something else. I acted. I texted Margaret. 2 words. They're accelerating. Her reply came within minutes. I expected that. Come see me Saturday. That was the moment everything shifted. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because now, this wasn't about reacting. It was about timing. Saturday. Margaret's office again. This time, she had everything prepared. Legal documents. Timelines. Options. The title is already protected, she explained. But if your uncle files false paperwork, he can create complications. What do I do? I asked. She tapped the calendar. Your birthday. The moment you turn 18. You gain full legal authority. You sign one document. I file a legal notice first thing the next morning. And that locks everything. No one can sell. No one can transfer anything. Nothing moves without you. I nodded. Should I tell them? I asked. She looked at me carefully. Your grandfather didn't ask me to negotiate. He asked me to protect you. That answered everything. I went home. And my dad was smiling. Good news, he said. I'm throwing you a birthday party. Big smile. Whole family. Big moment. I smiled back. Because now I understood something he didn't. This wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. And they thought they were in control. They had no idea. The timeline had already changed. 9 days. That's all it would take. 9 days. And everything they planned would collapse. And I would let them believe. Right up until the last second. That everything was going exactly their way. The hardest part wasn't what they were planning. It was pretending I didn't know. For 9 days. I lived inside a version of reality that wasn't real. I smiled at dinner. I nodded when my dad talked about family decisions. I listened as my mom explained responsibility. Like I hadn't already been carrying it for years. And every night, I went to sleep knowing exactly what they were about to do. And exactly what I was going to do first. 5 days before my birthday. My mom sat next to me on the couch. Soft voice. Measured tone. The voice she used when she wanted control to sound like care. Now that you're almost 18, she said. There are some decisions we should make, together. Together. That word felt rehearsed. Like something she practiced before saying. The cabin is expensive to maintain, she continued. Taxes, repairs. Your father's business is struggling. I didn't interrupt. If we sell it, she said, we can secure your future. Our future. I looked at her. Grandma wanted me to keep it. Her expression changed for a split second. Then smoothed out. She was emotional at the end, Iris. There it was. The quiet dismissal. The rewriting of truth. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. My dad walked in right on cue. Almost like it was planned. I already spoke to a buyer, he said. Casual. Confident. Good price. Clean deal. What company? I asked. He hesitated. Ridgeline, something. I already knew. I didn't push. I'll think about it, I said. He smiled. Satisfied. Like the decision was already made. That night. My sister knocked on my door. Kelsey. Hair still damp. Oversized hoodie. She sat on the edge of my bed. They've been talking about the cabin a lot, she said quietly. I stayed still. Late at night. She hesitated. They sound different. How? I asked. Like they're excited. A pause. But also nervous. That part mattered. Is something going on? She asked. I looked at her. She didn't know. Not really. Don't worry about it, I said gently. She nodded. But she didn't believe me. 3 days before my birthday. Uncle Wade showed up. Unannounced. He caught me in the driveway. Leaning against his car. Smiling. Too relaxed. Too intentional. Got a minute, he asked. We sat on the front steps. He leaned forward. Confident. Like he was already winning. That cabin. He paused. Just the land alone is worth $450,000. I didn't react. I can get us a deal, he continued. Fast close. Clean paperwork. And what do I get? I asked. He smiled wider. 50,000. The number sat there. Light. Insulting. Most people your age would jump at that, he added. I looked at him carefully. Whose name is on the deed? I asked. For a split second? His expression changed. Then it reset. Your grandparents, he said. They're gone now. It passes to your dad and me. That wasn't true. He knew it. I knew it. But he was counting on something. That I didn't. I'll think about it, I said. Again. He stood up. Brushed off his jeans. Don't overthink it, Iris. Opportunities like this don't wait. He drove off. Already on the phone. Before he reached the end of the street. That night. I didn't stay home. I drove to the cabin. Alone. The lake was still. Dark. The air smelled like rain. And pine. I sat on the porch. In my grandfather's chair. And I opened my laptop. Margaret had sent everything. Every document. Every signature page. Every instruction. Clean. Precise. Ready. I read everything twice. Not because I didn't trust her. Because I needed to understand. Fully. What I was about to do. Midnight approached slowly. Too slowly. Because time feels different. When you're waiting for something that will change everything. I closed my eyes for a moment. And I thought about my grandfather. Patience isn't weakness, he used to say. It's timing. I always thought he meant fishing. I was wrong. The clock hit 11:59. Then. 12 o'clock. Iris, Margaret's voice came through the video call. You're officially an adult. I nodded. Ready? Yes. She guided me through each page. Clear. Step by step. I signed. My name. In ink. On a document my grandparents had prepared 6 years earlier. 6 years. They had seen this coming. Long before I did. When I finished. I looked at the paper. My name. Their names above it. Connected. Protected. It's done, Margaret said. Her voice softer now. This isn't a trick. This is your grandfather's last gift. I swallowed. Because now I understood. They didn't just leave me something. They protected it. From everyone. Even family. Downstairs. My house was silent. But across town. Someone else was still working. Uncle Wade. Printing documents. Preparing paperwork. Confident. Certain. That by morning. Everything would belong to him. He had already signed a deal. $450,000. With a development company. For land. He never owned. And in less than 8 hours. He was going to find out. Everything he built. Was based on a lie. And the truth. Was already filed. Irreversible. Locked. Untouchable. I closed my laptop. Lay back on my bed. And stared at the ceiling. For the first time in weeks. I felt calm. Not because the situation was over. Because it had already been decided. Not by me. By the people who saw this coming years ago. Morning would come. They would go to the county office. They would try to file their documents. And everything they believed would collapse. And I wouldn't have to say a word. Because the truth would already be waiting for them. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I had to. Because my body already knew. This wasn't a normal day. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Like something was waiting. I got dressed slowly. No rush. No panic. Just deliberate. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I was ahead. Downstairs, my dad was already in the kitchen. Coffee in hand. Phone on the counter. He looked up and smiled. Big day, he said. I nodded. Yeah. My mom walked in a few seconds later. Excited. Energy in her voice. Your uncle's meeting the buyer this morning, she said. Casual. Like it was already done. Everything should be finalized soon. Finalized. That word hung in the air. I picked up a glass of water. Took a sip. And said nothing. Because sometimes, silence is the strongest position you can take. By 9:30, everything was in motion. Uncle Wade was already at the county office. Documents ready. Buyer waiting. Confident. Certain. Because in his mind, everything had already been decided. At 9:42 a.m., Margaret called me. They're there, she said. Her voice was calm. Professional. But there was something underneath it. Finality. I filed the notice at 8:58. I closed my eyes briefly. Timing. Perfect. What happens now? I asked. They're about to find out. At the county office. Everything looked normal. Fluorescent lights. Long counters. Stacks of paperwork. The kind of place where decisions are made quietly. But permanently. Uncle Wade stood at the counter. Folder in hand. Talking to the clerk. Smiling. Relaxed. The buyer stood behind him. Suit. Briefcase. Ready to close. Everything was lined up. Everything made sense. Until it didn't. The clerk paused. Looked at the screen. Then looked again. Her expression shifted. Subtle. But enough. I'm sorry, she said. There's a restriction on this property. Wade frowned. What kind of restriction? She turned the monitor slightly. An irrevocable trust. Silence. His smile disappeared. What does that mean? He asked. It means you don't have the authority to transfer this property. The words landed slowly. Like they needed time to be understood. That's not possible, he said. It is, she replied. There's a sole beneficiary listed. He swallowed. Who? She checked the screen. Then said my name. Iris Tmain. Everything stopped. The buyer stepped back slightly. Confused. Concerned. What's going on? He asked. Wade didn't answer. Because for the first time, he didn't have control. He grabbed the paperwork. Flipped through it quickly. Like the answer might be hiding somewhere inside. But it wasn't. Because the truth had already been filed. Official. Legal. Final. The deal collapsed right there. No negotiation. No workaround. Just over. At 10:17 a.m., my phone rang. Dad. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. What did you do? He asked. No greeting. No calm. Just panic. I protected what was mine, I said. Silence. Then. You went behind my back? I almost laughed. But I didn't. You were selling something that wasn't yours. That's family property, he snapped. No, I said. It isn't. Another pause. Who told you? He asked. Grandpa did. That ended it. Not the conversation. The argument. Because there was nothing left to say. He hung up. And 10 minutes later. The front door slammed open. Uncle Wade. Angry. Not controlled anger. Real anger. The kind that shows up when someone loses something they thought they already owned. My dad followed behind him. My mom just behind that. All three of them. In the same room. For the first time. Without control. What is this? Wade demanded. I stayed seated. Calm. A trust, I said. You knew about this? My dad asked. Yes. For how long? Long enough. Wade stepped closer. You cost me a deal, he said. No, I replied. You made a deal you had no right to make. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. You think you're smarter than us? My mom said. I looked at her. Not angry. Not emotional. Just clear. I think Grandma and Grandpa were. That landed harder than anything else. Because it wasn't an insult. It was truth. My dad sat down slowly. Like the weight of everything had finally reached him. What happens now? He asked. I answered simply. Nothing. The cabin stays. No sale. No deal. Nothing changes. But everything had. Because for the first time, they understood something. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wasn't the one they could decide for. I wasn't the one they could overlook. I stood up. Walked to the door. Paused. Then said one last thing. You taught me something. They looked at me. Confused. Pay attention. And I did. I opened the door. And stepped outside. The air felt different. Lighter. Not because everything was fixed. Because everything was clear. That afternoon, I drove to Cedar Lake. The cabin looked the same. Porch still leaning slightly. Screen door still sticking. Nothing had changed. And that's exactly why it mattered. I walked inside. Ran my hand across the old wooden table. Sat in my grandfather's chair. And looked out at the water. Still. Quiet. Protected. Just like he wanted. And for the first time, I understood something completely. This was never about money. It was about trust. And knowing exactly who deserves it. Because family isn't who claims something. Family is who protects it. And this time, I did.